Hello and welcome to Assessing in Primary PE, which is part two of our Developing an Effective and Engaging Primary PE program. Hopefully, you were able to join us last week for part one in our series, which was Planning Your PE program. But if you haven't had a chance to watch that yet, make sure you go back and watch the replay of that. You should have received it in your email inbox if you were registered. Otherwise, you can access it from our website. My name is Alison King. I am the Kiddo Programs Manager. I have a PE teacher background, but I've been working with Kiddo for almost 3 years now. And joining me today is Amanda Derbyshire, our Programs Director. She's been part of the Kiddo program since its inception in 2014, which is 11 years ago, and she's been integral in its development. Once again, we have people joining us from all over Australia and all over the world today. So we've got people from South Africa, Japan, and Ireland, as well as Mount Torrens in South Australia, Narangba in Queensland, and Norah Head in New South Wales. So please pop into the chat. Tell us where you are watching from today. We'd love to meet you. As always, all registrants will receive the replay. So if we go too fast or you miss something, either pop your question into the chat or you can always go back and watch the replay later, which will be dropped into your inbox within the next few days. Let's begin with our acknowledgement of country. We pay our respects to the past and present traditional owners of the land on which we reside, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and to all the native peoples of the lands on which we work and live. So today's webinar, we are going to talk about the purpose of assessment, and then I'm going to go through how to assess fundamental movement skills for kindy preschool to year 2 using the Kiddo FMS assessment. Amanda's going to run you through how to assess in years 3 to 6 using our brand new CAMSA assessment and also using rubrics to assess. And then I'll finish up just talking a little bit about how to plan your assessment. So just a reminder of what our Kiddo vision is. We want to ensure that every child has the skills and confidence to be active for life. So everything we do is with that goal in mind, making sure that children are having fun, engaging in physical activity so that we can build their confidence. And when they're confident, they're more motivated to participate. So we want to build those fundamental movement skills through fun and engaging activities. So assessment in primary PE. So assessment is the ongoing process of gathering, analysing and reflecting on evidence to make informed judgments about the achievement or capabilities of individuals and cohorts. The primary role of the assessment that you conduct is to establish where students are currently in their learning. So then you can adjust your teaching according to what they need and what they need to improve on. It also obviously monitors their progress over time and provides information that assists teachers to target their teaching at the point of student need. So, curriculum requirements for assessment. So, the Australian curriculum, which is used by many states in Australia, provides little to no guidance on actually how to assess in PE. There's no explicit or set ways to assess. The WA curriculum does provide some examples using observation checklists and rubrics, and the Victorian New South Wales curriculums also provide some sample templates that you can use. But ultimately, assessment is at the discretion of the teacher and the school, which can be extremely overwhelming if you are a new grad and you're just starting out in your teaching career, or if you are perhaps a teacher that has been thrown into the PE teaching side of things, you've never taught it before, you don't have any experience with it. So then assessment becomes quite difficult and quite challenging. So we're hoping that you leave today with a little bit more of some guidance as to where you can go and what you can do for your PE assessment. So the first thing you need to think about is, what is your purpose when assessing? So obviously we have reporting. We need to, complete reports usually twice a year for our students. But what else does assessment provide for you? So first of all, it establishes where children are in their learning, and that's really important because then you can plan your program based on what they currently know and then what they need to know. Ongoing monitoring of student development and progress, so you can identify students who need additional assistance. But more than that, you get feedback on how your programs are running. So you can get feedback based on if you assess at the start of the year and at the end of the year, you can have a look at that and see which skills have improved, which hasn't improved. And then you can go back and look at your program and go, okay, well, I need to spend more time on kicking because the student's overall level of kicking hasn't improved. Or I have need to spend some more time on throwing. So it provides you valuable feedback to evaluate and adjust your programs according to what the students need. So the common assessment techniques that we use in physical education are the formative and summative assessments. So formative assessments are process-oriented assessments, which is how the skills are performed. So lots of phys ed teachers are already using these. So department skill checklists, tests of gross motor development are all formative assessments. So the great thing about formative assessment is that you can identify specific skill deficiencies within your cohort of students, and that can then be used to inform your programming. And it provides information on why students are performing well or they're performing poorly. Unfortunately, formative assessments are very, very subjective and can differ greatly depending on who is conducting the assessment. They can be really time consuming and they are often inaccurate due to their subjective nature. Summative assessments are a bit different. They are product-oriented assessments, so concerned with skills outcomes. So the time it takes a student to do something, the distance they can throw or kick or jump, and the accuracy with which they can do a task. So the stay in step screening test is an example of that, and the MABC2 clinical screen. So summative assessments are fantastic because they're generally really quick to administer and they don't need a lot of training to be able to administer them. The reliability is high because they are an objective test and also allows norm referencing. And this is really important because one of the areas that PE assessment lacks is moderation. So other subjects have the ability to swap pieces of work by doing a common assessment with other schools in the area or other states. We don't have that luxury in phys ed. So a summative assessment gives you at least some data that you can then compare to others through norm referencing. The downside to summative assessment is that you can't identify specific deficiencies using the summative data. All right, so FMS assessment. So this is your kindergarten or preschool up to year 2 is when you should be assessing their fundamental movement skills. So we know that fundamental movement skill development is absolutely central to our PE programs in the early years and should be the core focus of our PE lessons in those early childhood years. Because fundamental movement skills establish the foundation for the specialist skills that we need to engage in physical and recreational activities across our lifespan. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that there are long-term negative impacts of not developing FMS proficiency in childhood. So therefore, it's really important that we monitor their FMS development of our students, both for our reporting in line with the curriculum, but also to ensure that we are giving our students the best chance at developing those skills that are going to allow them to continue to be active movers and engage in physical activity for the rest of their life. So the Kiddo FMS assessment contains 5 challenges. So a balance, jump, run, bounce, bounce and catch, and kick. So the Kiddo FMS assessment was created by the researchers at UWA and they based it on the stay in step assessment. These five skills have been chosen because they give you a basic overall view of FMS proficiency and measures a student's overall development. So this is a mixed assessment. So it contains the primary assessment, which is the summative. So how long they can balance for, how far they can kick the soccer ball for. Plus, we've also included some optional observation criteria so you can get that formative assessment. And when we do the website demonstration, I'll be able to show you that a bit more closely. It's validated and reliable. It can all be done online, which is a huge advantage when you can take your phone or iPad out to the oval or out to the undercover area where you're conducting your assessment, and you can input it straight away. And it takes approximately 5 minutes per child. Now, when you are just beginning, we don't recommend that you do all 5 challenges with all of your classes because that can be really overwhelming. So we recommend that you usually start with 1 or 2 challenges, even with 1 or 2 classes just to begin with, and then gradually increase it as you go. The really amazing thing about the Kiddo FMS assessment is that it is all automated. So as soon as you input the data, you will receive percentile rankings for your students. You can print out a percentile report. And when you've done multiple assessments, you'll be able to have a progress report. And this is all instantaneous as soon as you've inputted the data. So number of kiddo FMS assessments. So we've just ticked over 100,000 students have been assessed with our kiddo FMS assessment. So it's a fairly valid and reliable indication of where your cohort sit compared to other students in Australia. And that's really important because as we were talking about before, we don't have that moderation available to us. So this gives you a little bit of an idea of where your students are sitting. So the 5 assessment challenges that we have first of all, we have balance, which we ask the students to stand on one leg with their hands on their hips for as long as they can, up to a maximum of 40 seconds. We test both legs twice. So you do the left leg and the right leg twice each. The jump for distance is very simply a standing long jump. So from a stationary position, jump as far as they can for distance. The run, if they are in kindergarten or preschool, it's a 30-metre run. And then for that first year of full-time school, so pre-primary in Western Australia, prep in Victoria and Queensland, transition in Northern Territory, reception in South Australia, it's a 50-metre run. So from the foundation year through to year 2, it's 50 metres. Kick for distance, so kicking a soccer ball as far as they can, and the bounce and catch. So we ask the students to bounce and catch the ball with both hands as many times as possible in 20 seconds. So I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm going to show you exactly how to create and run an assessment. So just share my screen. Go. Okay, so when you log in, this is what you'll see. I'm the phys ed teacher, so I have lots of different classes that have been allocated to me. I'm going to go down to Prep Purple here. So this is a Victorian school, hence why they're called Prep. So this is, again, the foundation year. So transition, pre-primary, reception, whatever you call it in your state or territory. I'm going to click on this Assess Now button, and that's going to take me to my overview page where I can see the assessments. Now you notice there's just one tab here. So we only assess FMS in the kindergarten or preschool to year 2. When Amanda shows you a year 5 class later on, you'll see there are options for CAMSA and also for rubrics. Now, all the instructions are located here. So when you click on the FMS instructions, there's a really comprehensive set of instructions that, gives you an overview, gives you instructions, even to the point of, telling you exactly what you need to ask students to do, a video and hints, and that is for all 5 challenges. So before you start, I highly recommend that you familiarize yourself with those instructions, because obviously we want to make sure that everybody's doing the test the same way and following all of the protocols the same way. So to create an assessment, it's very simple. I'm just going to select Add FMS. I'm going to call this Webinar 2 2025. Choose your date. So if you're conducting multiple assessment challenges but not all on the same date, just choose a date that's somewhere in the middle. I always recommend that you select all the challenges, whether or not you're going to run them. It's always a good idea because you want them all to appear on the report at the end. If you only select a few, then those ones won't appear on the report, even if you do them later. We're going to select all of our students, and then we're going to save. So then when we're ready to run the assessment, I'm Webinar 2 2025. There's a number of different ways we can do it. So some people are pen and paper people, and they prefer to write all of their information down and then input it later. So to help with that, we created a bulk entry option. So here are all the children in my class. So if I go down to Daisy Duck, I can see all of Daisy's. We might have done the bounce and catch. So I can put in how many catches that she has done and also any observations. Then I can do her jump for distance, etc. And I can continue on with all of my students. So that's one way of doing it. If you're going to input straight into your device, what you would want to do is you would want to go into Run Trials. and then I can see all my students there. So for example, today we're going to do the bounce and catch and the jump for distance. So let's go into Daisy is my first student. Again, all these information buttons, I can just remind myself of the protocols for the test and what we need to say. I click go. So here you'll notice there's a timer. So when I start that timer, I ask Daisy, on your marks, get set, go. She starts doing her bounce and catch. I'm going to count her catches. There's a space here for comments. So I noticed that Daisy dropped the ball. So I'm going to add that in. Drop the ball. And then I can do observations as well. So here's all my formative assessment down here. At 20 seconds, I ask her to stop. She got 14 catches. We only do one trial for that one, and then we save. Very, very simple. Now, if you don't have really good internet out on your oval, that's totally fine. I'm online now. As long as you're on this page, when you go out there, it will save all of your data. And then when you come back in and connect to the internet, it will sync everything and save everything for you. So this is not reliant on you having really, really good internet. Let's have a look at the jump for distance. Let's go, we'll go do Mickey Mouse can do his jump for distance. So perhaps I go through and I do all of the bounce and catch in my class, and then I go and do all the jump for distance, or I could do Daisy's bounce and catch and her jump for distance straight after. So jump for distance. Okay, so I've given all the instructions. Mickey's done his jump for distance. He's done 121 centimeters. I'm going to save the trial. And then his second one, he did 132 centimeters. And I noticed that he did really good arm swing behind his body, and save that. And it gives me a nice little green dot, and it's syncing my data so that I don't lose it. Okay, now in terms of what you then do with that data, next week's webinar, we're going to talk about the reports and the insights and everything that you can do with your data. We're not going to go through that today, but there's lots and lots of stuff that you can do with that data once you've got that. So we'll go through that next week. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go back to the presentation now. Okay. All right, so we're going to give you some little tips for how you actually run this, because it all looks great and it looks fantastic, but how do you actually run this in your school? So in the early childhood sector, quite often classes will have an education assistant or a teacher aide. So we really encourage you to use your teacher's aides to help you run this assessment. So whether that's in a station situation where your teacher aide is supervising the other students while you run the assessment, or vice versa. Training your teacher aide or assistant to be able to run this assessment. So splitting the class in half. One of you does the bounce and catch, one of you does the 30 meter or 50 meter run, and the rest of the children are doing an obstacle course. Also having your teacher aide or assistant assess one-on-one. So taking a child out of the class, assessing them, and then bringing back in. And also using student leaders, so year 6 students, or if you're in a K to 12 school, perhaps you've got year 11 or 12 students that you can train up to come down and do it. So there are lots of different ways that you can practically run this assessment in your school. If you're a phys ed teacher and you would like to assess with year 1 and 2, perhaps again you're lucky enough to have an aide, use your aide in the same way. Other ways to do it is to work with another class. So if there's multiple phys ed teachers at your school, combining your classes, one teaches and the other does the assessment activities. Again, using TAFE students, work experience students, year 6 students, year 11 and 12 students to help you, or parents to help you run the assessment. And if you are very lucky, with support from your admin. So providing some relief so that you can conduct those assessments. And the big one, assessing FMS on your own. So there's no option for you to combine with other classes. You don't have any EAs or any external help. How do you do it? Well, you can do it. We recommend that you use a stations teaching teaching structure. And we have done webinars on this in the past if you'd like to go back and watch the replays. But basically, you set up stations. One of those stations is one of our assessment challenges. You're conducting that while the other students are doing the other stations. You rotate them around until they're complete. Filming on an iPad is another great way. The bounce and catch is really easy to film on an iPad. Then you go back later, fill in the number of catches, and do your observational criteria. And again, not overloading yourself. So only conducting 1 to 2 assessments per term, especially when you're getting started. We do find that as you get better at it, it's a lot easier to add more, and then the students know what they're doing and it becomes easier. But don't overwhelm yourself to start with. You know, bounce and catch is easy to do. The 30 or 50-meter run is easy to do. Pick some of the easier and quick ones to start with. All right, so how do schools assess with kiddo? So these are some examples of our current kiddo schools and what they are doing. So this is Geograph Primary School down in the southwest of Western Australia. So Alison Kirk is down there. She uses the station system when she's assessing. She's really lucky. She gets her year 1s and 2s twice a week, so she has plenty of time to do it. And she's lucky that she has lots of support from education assistants, workplace students that are in her school, and from the local high school. So she utilises them to their full extent to get her assessment done. She is a pen and paper person, so she prefers to do it all on pen and paper, and then she does her bulk entry after. She was absolutely thrilled when we added the bulk entry option. She said it's cut so much time on her data entry, and she finds it super quick and easy to enter her data in. Then we've got Shane Marley at Gladstone Park Primary School in Victoria. So he uses Kiddo. They have to provide portfolios for their prep to year 2 students. So he uses the results to go into their portfolios. And he's managed to run all 5 challenges over 3 lessons. So again, this is after a few years of using Kiddo. This is what he's worked up to. So they use the station system again. So in lesson 1, bounce and catch and jump. Lesson 2, balance, and then lesson 3, their outside lesson for their 50-meter run and their kick for distance. So it definitely can be done, but the stations seem to be the most effective way of doing it. All right, it is time for a little brain break. I'm going to share a little video for one of our brain breaks, classroom brain breaks called Ringmaster Says. Feel free to join in, have a little stretch, and enjoy our Ringmaster Says.
Okay, thanks, Alison. So my name's Amanda, and I'm going to take over now and share the CAMSA assessment with you. The CAMSA is Kiddo's brand new assessment that we added to the website at the start of the year as part of our year 3 to 6 development, and really excited to share it with you today. So this is not a kiddo assessment. We didn't develop this, but we've built it into the website so that make it easy for you to use. So the CAMS has been used around the world. It stands for the Canadian Agility and Movement Skill Assessment, and it's a validated assessment tool for students in year 3 to 8, actually. So if you do have high school students, you can continue to use it then. Effectively, it's an obstacle course, but what it is, it's a really nice progression on from the FMS assessment that Alison's just shared with you, which looks at skills in isolation. So that looks at, balance on its own, or bounce and catch on its own, or jump on its own. What the CAMSA does is it's an agility course that's designed to authentically replicate how children would move and use these skills in more a sports setting, so the real world skills. So it looks at how skills transition between each other and how they link together in succession and how students manage to do that. 7 different movement skills are included: jump, sidestep, catch, throw, skip, hop, and kick. And I will show you a quick video soon. Like I said, it's been used in schools and around the world, and it's based on the data. So when you do it with your students, you get given, they're put in one of 4 categories, and that's based on the data of 10,000 children. And it will actually be very interesting in Australia, because this will be the first time it's used on a widespread basis in Australia. I know there's been a number of schools using it, particularly in Victoria, up to this date. But it'll be very interesting to see how the Australian children compare to the Canadian children. But that's probably more a research project and something we'll look on with interest this year. So it's been built into the Kiddo website just like the FMS assessment. So it has automated reports, both progress and percentile reports, and we'll talk about that more next week. There's insights into how the students compare to students across Australia, and they also get given a ranking. So how do you do the CAMSA in a school setting? There's pretty low equipment needs. There are things that you would have in your sports shed. So there's hoops, cones, a soccer ball, and a tennis ball effectively. We were lucky enough to go to Redcliffe Primary School with their PE teacher last year, Ricky King, and run it with the year 5s and 6s there. And probably the trickiest thing is finding a throwing target, particularly if you don't have a gym. All we did was roll out a whiteboard on wheels, which many of you would have in a school, and we drew a target on the whiteboard. So really easy to do. But the students do 2 practice runs and 2 time trials, and it's really important that they get those 4 opportunities to do the CAMSA before you assess them, because the research shows that if they don't get those 2 practice runs and 2 time trials, they won't get the best score they could have possibly got. Takes around 15 seconds, so it's super quick. About 1/3 of a basketball court, and you just need to prompt the students as they go through the course. So you're saying ready, set, go, jump through the hoops, sidestep to the next cone, sidestep back, and etc. Some things you need to think about when you're running it is running it into small groups. So we'll talk more about ways you can do that, but it's really important that we don't want students on display while they're doing this assessment. We want to keep that confidence high, and putting students in a similar ability levels in the same groups as well is an important consideration. Now, the CAMSA is a really nice combination of a formative assessment and a summative assessment. So the way it's scored is that each student gets a skill score. So as they're going through the course, you're scoring them. And you can see on the screen there's 14 different skill criteria. So 2-foot jump. If they do 3 2-foot jumps in and out of each left-hand hoop, so if they do that correctly, they get 1 point. If they don't do it, it's 0. And that all adds up to a maximum score of 14. And then that's combined with a time score. So whatever time it takes them to complete the course, so say it's 19.5 seconds, that then translates to a score of 8, and that's added to the skill score. You don't need to worry too much about this, because this is all automatically done for you in the Kiddo website, which makes it a lot easier. But it's important to talk with students about how it's scored, because often you get students who just race through it as quick as they can, and even though they could have performed the skills, they don't do them properly because they're trying to get the fastest time. So it's very important that you explain at the start and they have an understanding about how it's scored, so they can get the best possible score they can. You'll find, look, we've had quite a few different teachers who've used it so far. Actually, over 1,000 assessments have been done in the first month of school. And one thing teachers said is, look, the first few times it's pretty tricky, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually quite simple. And if you're going to be using it in your school, is putting down permanent marks where the markers go and things like that will make it a lot easier. And once the students become familiar with it, so you first do it with them in year 3, I think in subsequent years that will make it a lot easier. Okay, I'm going to show you a quick video, because as much as I can tell you what skills they do, it's a lot easier to see it. So I've got like a 1-minute video excerpt, and then we're going to jump onto the Kiddo website, and I'm going to take you through how it works on there. So let me just share the video with you.
In the assessment, it's important to show 2 demonstrations to the students. In the first demonstration, you'll move slowly through the entire course, performing each skill correctly and explaining it as you go. For the second demonstration, perform the course at full speed while still maintaining accuracy in your skills. This gives participants a good idea of what to strive for when they're doing it themselves. Now, let's go over how to complete the course. Start standing stationary in front of the left-hand yellow hoop. Complete 3 2-foot jumps into the left-hand hoops, then run to the cone 1 and turn so you are facing the course assistant. Next, you'll perform a sideways slide to cone 2. Touch cone 2 and then slide back to cone 1, touching it once you reach it. Now, run toward the throwing line, catch the ball when the course assistant throws it to you, and do an overarm throw, aiming for the target. You can throw it at any point before the line. Once you've thrown the ball, run to the outside of cone 3. From cone 3, skip to cone 4. After going around cone 4, hop on 1 foot through each of the 6 hula hoops. Once you've landed in the last hoop, run to the kicking line and kick the ball between the cones. Now that you're
Okay, so that is the CAMSA very quickly there. So as you can see, it's nothing that year 3 to 6 students wouldn't be familiar with in terms of the skills, but it's how they transition the skills and combine them together. Okay, I'm going to jump onto the Kiddo website now. Just give me 1 second. Okay, and we're going to go into a year 5 class today because CAMSA is for year 3 to 6. And we'll jump into the assessments tab. And you'll see here that there's 3 different options for assessment. We would highly recommend that you switch from doing the FMS assessment at the end of year 2 to the CAMSA. FMS on their own a real focus for the curriculum up until the end of year 2, and then it switches to looking at how those skills are used in the context of sport and physical activity. So the CAMSA is a lot more appropriate. Also, a couple of the FMS assessments do have a real ceiling effect, particularly balance and bounce and catch. You'll see the more proficient children aren't going to be improved anymore because they've reached the physical limit of actually how many times you can bounce and catch. So yeah, we would highly recommend the CAMSA for year 3 to 6 if you're going to continue assessing. So you simply, firstly, very importantly, CAMSA instructions. We've got a 12-minute video that will spend a lot of time getting ready for you in here, and please watch that before you start the CAMSA. Also some great detailed instructions with if you want to print out the setup so that you can have it there while you're setting up. If you want to print out the verbal cues or the detailed instructions, they're all here for you for download and print. So have a good read through these. We've had one teacher who told me they just ran it through with their students. They didn't worry about timing or scoring. They just wanted to get familiar, which is a great idea, or try it out with a colleague or yourself. Don't go straight into doing a whole class of students. So let's add a CAMSA. That's how we start the assessment. Right. We'll just call this an example. You can select all your students or just a couple, depending on how you're running it, and then simply click Save and Run. Simply click there. Okay, and you'll see very similar to the FMS assessment, the Kiddo website, once you get familiar with it, becomes very easy to use because everything's laid out the same way, regardless of which type of assessment you're using. Let's go down, and we might do Henry today. We simply click on the down arrow, and we click Go for Trial 1. Now you can see there's a few elements here to the CAMSA assessment. So we've got the timing, so we just need to press Start just after we've said Ready, Set, Go to the student. Over here we have the verbal prompts. So these are the verbal prompts that you're saying to the students as they're going through the assessment. So you'd be going Ready, Set, Go, and then you go 2-foot jumps, and the student does 2-foot jumps through the hoops. As they're doing that, you're scoring them. So toggle it across to green if they did it correctly. If they did it incorrectly, just leave it on grey. And you'll see up here it starts combining the score for you. So then you're saying slide, touch the cone, slide, touch the cone, and you're scoring them as they go. So we'll press Ready, Set, Go. If they catch the ball, they get a point. If they hit the target, they get a point. Same with transference of weight. Correct hopping and stepping, using their arms appropriately for skipping. If they land 1 foot in each hoop, and they hop once in each hoop. If they hit the target, and if they have their elongated stride on the last stride before kicking the ball. Simply click Stop when they're finished. If you have any comments, if they're distracted, if they received a bad throw. If they do receive a bad throw, please start the trial again because that's not really fair on the participant. And then simply click Save Trial, and it's as easy as that. Similar as Alison said, if you don't have a good internet connection, you can do this offline as well. And when you're next connected to the internet, you can easily, it will automatically sync So all the data will be uploaded to the Kiddo website. Now, next week, we're going to go through the automated reports I'm excited to share with you and the categories students get placed in, as well as the school insights. But I'm going to jump back to the website, back to the presentation now, so that we can finish going through that. Let me just share the presentation. So like I said, we've had schools across Australia already using it. Schools, I think we've gone from Canberra, Cocos Islands, Kalgoorlie, Victoria, all over Australia who are already using the CAMSA assessment, and they've shared with some of the ways they've done it. But look, I'm sure you're thinking, I've got 30 students in my class. How do I do this assessment where they have to go through it? What do I do with the rest of the students? So we've got some ideas for you. So if you're lucky enough to have a support, and that might be another teacher or an education assistant, or it might be a work experience student or a high school student, divide your students into small groups. The other students will be running through the independent stations that you've set up. Important to note, if you search in the Kiddos activity database for CAMSA, you'll find there's a CAMSA stations activities all there for you. So the station cards you can download, and we've put in stations that we know work and the children enjoy and can complete independently, while you just have a small group of 3 to 5 students of similar ability level who do the 2 practice runs and 2 time trials with yourself. Now you need to have a CAMSA assistant, and their job is to throw the tennis ball to the person doing the trial, placing the soccer ball on the line, and they also need to do those verbal prompts. So ready, set, go, jump through the hoops, etc. You yourself would be the CAMSA leader. So you're the PE teacher and your job is to time and score. And I would be doing that directly into a tablet so that there's no double handling. Important that the students receive the same verbal prompts and consistent throws. So like I said, if it's a dodgy throw, just start again so that everyone can have a similar experience. Now, if you don't, we know most of you don't have support. So if you don't, it's still possible to do. I would be setting up a tablet or a phone on a tripod or in a box or however you want to prop it up so that it can record students going through the CAMSA. Divide your class into small groups. Set up your stations. You can see in this picture, the students of Redcliffe are completing the stations while there's a small group here doing the CAMSA. The PE teacher here in the black is watching the CAMSA while also being able to keep an eye on the whole class. You must have a student assistant. So over here, we've got a student assistant who places the soccer ball and throws the ball. So a good year 6 student or a student who within your other classes can do that. And the teacher's job is to time and do the verbal prompts, and then you score the trial at a later time using the video replay. So still very doable, and hopefully the data that you get out of this is valuable enough for you to be able to engage parents, help your programming and planning, and get your school leadership on board that it's worth putting the effort into doing the CAMSA. So we've had some schools share with us how they're using it, and if you are using it or you start to use it, please let us know. We'd love feedback. Particularly useful for us is things that aren't great or don't work, because then we can help improve them and we can share with you solutions we might have heard from other schools. So this is a small primary school up in Darwin. This teacher ran it with the house captains, the year 6 student leaders, and they completed the assessments themselves and rotated through the assistant role. So the teacher now feels confident that they're trained up and that she can use them to help her run the assessment with the rest of the year groups in the school. She did say at the beginning, once you go through it a few times, it's a cinch. It's certainly very tricky though, and I don't know if it's actually possible to do the verbal prompts, time and score at the same time. I do think, unfortunately, you probably need to record the students and then do that scoring at a later date, unless you become super good at it. We'll be interested to see if anyone's able to do that. Another school that's using it, and this is a completely different setting, this is an education support high school or a special education high school. So we have all types of organisations and schools who use Kiddo. All their students have already been assessed. They videoed them completing it and then scored the students. Issues they had, students had problems remembering the course. So the way they solved that was having an education assistant in front of the students with a follow the leaders style. First glance of the results, some of the insights, very few of the students could skip, and I think that was probably because they weren't given the opportunity to skip. Throwing and catching was good, and they did have difficulty doing 6 hops in a row. So all of a sudden, there's this information that they didn't have access to before that helps with their programming and planning. So yeah, would love to hear from you if you do use the CAMSA. Love to hear how it works in your school. Okay, before I hand back to Alison, I'm going to go through assessment rubrics. I know many of you are very familiar with assessment rubrics, so I will be very quick in this, but these are the new kiddo rubrics, standardized rubrics that were developed as part of the year 3 to 6 program. So these are now available for every program within the kiddos year 3 to 6. So within each program, a specific rubric has been developed that's linked to a specific activity. I know you can't see the rubric clearly on the screen here, but we'll jump onto the website in a second to have a look. So they are linked to activities that are repeated within each program, and this is done for a very good reason, because we don't want you assessing students when they're still learning the activity. So the rubrics are linked to a repeated activity, and the idea is that you use that rubric when they've already done the activity so they're familiar with it, and it makes it a valid assessment. It's currently available for all Australian curriculum, WA curriculum, and Victorian curriculum. New South Wales curriculum is coming soon. And the rubrics should form a really important part of your curriculum because the CAMSA really only assesses movement skill. And there's a lot more in the curriculum and in PE that's important than just movement skill. As the students get older, that teamwork, that following the rules, the ethical behaviour, all those other strands of the curriculum are very important. And the rubric is a way to assess those other strands, such as movement concepts, ethical behaviour in sport. And it's really up to you, I guess, the weighting that you might give movement skill as opposed to these other more holistic concepts around being physically active, and certainly being physically literate isn't just around movement skills. There's all these other elements to it. So let me just jump online and show you quickly what it looks like on the Kiddo website so you know where to go and how to do it. And remember, if you're not a Kiddo member, you can jump on and try all the assessments in your 30-day free trial. So again, you have the instructions for the rubrics here, and over there you can see the activities that are being used for the rubrics. Simply click Add Rubric, give yourself a name. Again, select your student, so you can see it's the same format for all the assessments, and then select your rubric. So we were going to have a look at strike and fielding. We're in a Victorian school today, so these are linked to the Victorian curriculum, a brand new one that schools are using for the first time this year. Simply click Save and Run. Okay, important to read the instructions. It takes you through the activity that they're playing and being assessed on, the curriculum outcomes it's assessing, and the 4 different areas of observations that you're making. Okay, so these are the bits in the Victorian curriculum: movement skills, movement concepts, making active choices, and learning through movement. And then simply click the down arrow next to a student and go. In the little eye, you have the observations, and then you're going 4 different categories, so from excellent to low. So Zoe strikes the ball with consistent control. In movement concepts, she usually positions well and collaborates effectively. In making active choices, she consistently follows all safety rules. And in learning through movements, she usually follows rules and accepts outcomes respectively. And simply click Save. Really easy to do, online or offline. You should be able to get through all your students in a lesson with that assessment activity. So we hope that's a really nice addition to your assessment toolkit. Okay, I'm going to go back to the presentation, and I'm going to hand back to Alison, who's going to take you through the last part of our webinar. When do you do all these assessments in the school year? Thank you.
Thanks so much, Amanda. So, when to assess? And just like the curriculum is quite vague about what and how to assess, it is also very vague about when to assess. So, basically, it is completely up to you when you assess. So, what we have done is we've created an example for you to follow if you choose to or not. So, for the kindergarten preschool to year 2, this is what we recommend, and that gets all 5 challenges done across the course of the year. Now, ideally, we would love it for you to complete them once at the start of the year in semester 1 and once at the end of the year, so that then you can see the progress of your students. But if you're just starting out, if you can get them all done once, that's a really great start, and then you can see the progress the following year. You'll notice that we have done no assessment in term 1 for the kindergarten and the preschool students. If you have ever taught that age group, you will 100% understand why we have chosen to do that. And then as we get on to the year 1s and the year 2s, where they understand what they're doing, they've done it before, so it becomes a lot quicker. So then you can start to do 2 assessments within a term. But again, ultimately, it's up to you. If you just want to start with a bounce and catch and a run, and that's all you want to do, then that's what you can do. It's completely up to you what you choose to start with and then build up. For years 3 to 6, what we've done is we've pre-programmed the CAMSA to fit into the kiddo lessons in week 4 of term 1. So we've programmed that in there for you. If you require more than one lesson, of course, you can do it in week 5 as well, as you know, as many lessons as you want to. But we've put it in there for you to remind you to do it. Ideally, we would love it for you to retest them in term 4 if you have the capacity to do so. Again, so that then we can see their progress and see what's changed from term 1 to term 4, which is what ideally we're trying to do. We are coming to the end now, so just a reminder for those of you that are not yet Kiddo members, please join up and do a free 30-day trial. There's no credit card required. You can sign up, do a free 30-day trial. You get 5 free downloads with that, and it gives you an opportunity to explore the activities, explore the assessments, and have a little go at using them. So this is a quote from Annie Kay, who's a Victorian PE teacher and a curriculum writer. She's a big supporter of Kiddo. She is super impressed with the ease of the test administration, input of the data, and the report that is generated. It makes tracking of FMS very simple. And the best feedback we can get, this is the best assessment tool I have come across, and I have tried so many different things. So next week is our 3rd and final webinar in our series. We are going to be talking about reporting and insights. So once you've done your assessments, what can you do with that data? So how do you interpret it? How can you use it for intervention? How do you engage families using our reporting system? And how you can use the data to provide insights to school leadership, because we know school leadership love data, they love graphs. So we can show you exactly how you can present that to your school leadership team. So please make sure that you have registered for that one. It is not an automatic registration. You need to physically register yourself for that final webinar. Thank you once again for taking time out of your day to join us today. We really appreciate any time that you spend with us. We hope we've given you some really great tips for assessing PE in primary schools, and we're looking forward to seeing you next week for reporting and insights.